Suppose there are two probability, like if the force measure was not defined in your project, and next is if the force measure is defined and it give like closed list of events, only those list of events are eligible. Then if you are feeling like you are eligible for cost relief also, but the force measure is provided only the time relief, then you can choose change in law class. The change in law class will provide you both time and cost relief. So I want to clarify this also. It depends on each contract, particular contract, your project contract. You have to see how the change in law class is different. But generally, if any of the activity is affected by the change in law, mostly you will get both time and cost relief. Change in law provisions where country enact emergency legislation that affect performance or contracts that provide for subset of force measure that give rise not only to the time relief but also the cost relief. So you have to next you have to see for the change in law class action. If you are not, I told the three condition. If the three condition is applied, then you can see for the change in law. Like if the force measure condition is not satisfied, force measure condition is not defined. If the force measure examples are closely defined, that means only that set of events are applicable. And third one, you are not happy about only time relief. You want the cost relief also. In that condition, you can see the change in law class whether this can be applicable or not. Because in your country, if they have put any new legislation, maybe all the countries they have put in legislation like you should not move, you should close the construction site, you should not move out of the house like that. So we can see whether we can claim under the change in law. If it is claimed under change in law, sorry, you can get both time relief and cost relief. So now we are going to see actual project contracts. Some examples like some three or four three projects contracts and how they have defined the force measure or change in law. So I want to give you the feeling of how the actual contract reflects, how to study that, and how we can claim. So I have, from my experience, from my working experience, I have collected some contracts, actual contracts from various project. So I have put it like two of them we can discuss here. Like one is from India, one is from Singapore. So how the contract look like, how the post measure look like, how the change in law look like, we can see in the upcoming slides. So first contracts, what we are going to see is the NHA, like National Highway Road Project, EPC contract conditions in India. So in India, the national highway road projects are normally expressway national highway, uh, regulated by NHA, National Highway Authority of India. So we'll see how the contract look like, how the force measure is explained in the contract. So in the national, this contract, particular contract, they have divided the force measure into three events: non-political event, indirect political event, and political event. We'll see in the upcoming what are the events or examples for non-political event, indirect political event, and political event in the upcoming slides. Before that, what how they define the force measure class or force measure means the act or event which is beyond the reasonable control of the affected party. The affected party could not have prevented or overcome by exercise of due diligence and following good industry practice and has material adverse effect on the affected party. If these three conditions are, these are the three conditions with which they have defining the force measure. Like how we have seen in the FIDIC, they have defined the four conditions under which they have defined the force measure. This contract, they have defined the force measure by these three conditions. It is beyond the reasonable control of the affected party. Either party could not have prevented, the affected party could not have prevented or overcome, and it have the material adverse effect on the cost effect on the affected party. If these three conditions are satisfied, then it is called force measure. Let us see how they divided as a non-political event, indirect political event, and political event. What are the examples? What are the events they are telling us this one? We'll see in the next slide. So non-political event means these are the various events which constitute as a non-political event. For example, generally how we can see is it's not because of the government or you know uh, other parties. Okay, it's because of God, act of God. You know that type of events will be called as the non-political event mostly. For example, act of God, epidemic, not epidemic, extreme adverse weather condition, lightning, earthquake, landslide, cyclone, flood. All those are non-political events. Suppose strike or boycotts, interrupting supplies and service to the project highway for a continuous period of 24 hours and an aggregate exceeding 10 days in an accounting year and not being an indirect political event. So we'll see the indirect political event and we'll see this class. But now we can understand strike or boycotts also will come under the non-political event. Any failure or delay of subcontractor, but only to the extent caused by the another non-political event. Any judgment or order of any court or competent jurisdiction or statutory authority made against the contractor in any proceedings for reason other than if the failure of contractor to complete the applicable law or applicable permit on account of breach of any applicable law or applicable permit or any of contract or enforcement of this agreement or exercise of any of its right under this agreement by the authority. So because of any judicial order or if we have discovered any geological conditions or toxic contamination or archaeological remains on the site that would not have reasonably have been expected to discover to site inspection, those things, or any event or circumstance of natural analogous to any of the foregoing. This is important. If you see any event which is not here provided here, but it was similar to these events, can be considered as a non-political event. So we got one point, that is epidemic is a COVID-19 case, so it can classify as a non-political event. So before conclusion, we will see next two events also, that is indirect political event. So indirect political event consists of act of war, invasion, armed conflict, act of foreign enemy, riot, terrorist, military actions, these things. Industry or statewide strike or industrial action for continuous period of 24 hours. Any civil commotion, boycott, or political agitation which prevent the construction of project highway. Any failure or delay of the subcontractor to the extent caused by this indirect political event. Suppose if your subcontractor not able to procure the material because of this, and if there is any delay to that of indirect political event of any of these events, then we can constitute as indirect political event and you can claim the delay. Any indirect political event that causes a non-political event or any event circumstance of natural analogous to any of the foregoing. So these are the various events which come under the indirect political event. Okay, so let's see what is a political event. Change in law. Only if consequence thereof cannot be dealt with the change in law classes. Compulsory acquisitions of your project site or assets. Suppose unlawful if the clearance, license, permit, authorizations are not given by the government authority, though you have provided all those required documents. And the general condition what we have discussed in the previous two events. So we have to see what is the difference in relief in these three events. We have seen what are the events come under each one, like what are the examples for each event. Now we will see what is the difference in the relief for each event. For non-political event, the parties shall bear the respective force majeure cost, and neither party shall be required to pay to the other party any cost. So first I have to tell something. The force majeure, if any of these event occurs, we can get the extension of time because the force majeure is under the extension of time class. Like the extension of time, the force majeure is the one class. If it occurs, we'll get the extension of time. Now we are discussing about the cost only, how it differs in the three events. So one is already you got, that is extension of time you got. If any of the force majeure event occur, you will get definitely the extension of time. Sorry. Now we are talking about only the cost, how the cost differs if any of this event occurs. So first one is non-political event. If it occurs, either of the party have to uh, take care of the cost. Neither party have to means client need not to pay to the client, and the client need not to pay to the contractor, or contractor need not to pay any liquidated damages to the client. So, upon occurrence of indirect political event, all major force majeure costs contribute to such indirect political event, and not exceeding the insurance cover for such indirect political event shall be borne by the contractor. And to the extent force majeure costs exceed such insurance cover, one half of such excess amount shall be reimbursed by the contractor authority to the contractor. I think one of the best contract which defined clearly the force majeure event and the relief is the NHA contract. How clearly they have defined, how clearly they have divided the examples into three events, and how clearly they are giving the cost relief. So if it is a non-political event, because which is not in the hands of both parties, like act of God, in that condition you can't ask the other people to pay the money. It's not good. So in that condition, either of the party you have to take care of your cost. In case of indirect political event, like it is a politically motivated war, like political agitation or war, in that case you should have the insurance cover. If it is exceed the force majeure cost exceed the insurance cover, the exceeded amount is suppose 1 lakh, half of the amount 1 million, half of the amount like 50,000 million, like 500,000 million will be paid by the client. And if it is occur, if political event occur, then all the force majeure costs attributable to such political event shall be reimbursed by the authority to the contractor. So if it is a force majeure, if it is a political event, complete political event, because in that case the contractor is not, you can't accuse the contractor because he done everything. But if it is because of any of the political, like judicial order, or if they are not giving the license or something like that, change in law, in that case we have to reimburse, the client need to reimburse the amount to the contractor. I think this is one of the best contract which define the force majeure clearly. So now we'll discuss under which class we can claim. So yeah, we can obviously claim in the non-political event, but under non-political event you can't get the cost relief, only the time relief. But is there any other class you can claim? You need to see. Yeah, maybe I can claim under the change in law, which is coming under the political event. Since it is coming under the political event, I can get the cost relief also. how it come under the change in law condition. Because of new legislation provided by the government, they asked to close the construction site. They asked to, they instructed the people to inside the house. So these are the instructions. In some of the country, the legislation also, that also you have to be very clear whether the new legislation is provided, brought by the government. In Singapore, they have brought the legislation itself for this COVID-19. So like that, if any new legislation is brought by the government, then we can claim in the change in law. If it is claimed under the change in law, then you can definitely you can get the time and cost relief. If without